A powerful billionaire loses everything in a boardroom betrayal, then disappears at sea. When he wakes on a remote island, saved by a woman who sees through his charm, a new journey begins. But can he truly leave his old life behind? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The sun was setting over the Manhattan skyline as Beckham Lane stood at the window of his corner office. At 45, he had everything a man could want: $1 billion company, a penthouse apartment, and a reputation as one of the most powerful men in the business world. But tonight, his perfectly tailored suit couldn't hide the tension in his shoulders. "Mr. Lane, the board members are waiting in the conference room," his assistant said from the doorway. Beckham nodded without turning around. "Tell them I'll be there in a minute." As the door closed, he took a deep breath. This meeting was supposed to be a formality, a quick vote to approve his new expansion plan. But something felt off. His brother-in-law, Victor, had been avoiding him all week, and just yesterday, he'd spotted Victor having lunch with his biggest competitor, Marcus Wells. The conference room fell silent when Beckham walked in. 12. Faces turned to look at him, but only a few met his eyes. "Let's make this quick," Beckham said, taking his seat at the head of the table. "We all have the proposal. I assume you've read it. Let's vote." Victor cleared his throat. "Actually, Beckham, there's been a change of plans." The next 20 minutes were a blur. Documents passed around, legal terms thrown at him, signatures he'd never seen before. By the time Beckham understood what was happening, it was too late. Victor and Marcus had convinced the board to vote against him. They'd been planning this for months, secretly buying shares, making deals behind his back. "This is my company," Beckham finally shouted, standing up so fast his chair crashed to the floor. "I built it from nothing," Marcus Wells smiled. "And now it's ours. Don't worry, we'll keep you on as a consultant. You'll still have your office, your salary. You just won't be making any decisions." Beckham looked around the table at the people he'd trusted. Some looked away in shame, but others, like his ex-fiancée Vanessa, who'd somehow acquired voting shares after their breakup, smiled back coldly. "You can all go to hell," Beckham said, walking out and slamming the door behind him. 3 days. Later, Beckham stood on the deck of his yacht, the Empire, as it pulled away from the marina. His bags were packed with enough supplies for a week at sea. No phone, no internet, no contact with the world that had betrayed him. "Are you sure about this, sir?" asked Thomas, his captain. "The weather report mentioned a storm system forming south of our route." "We'll go around it," Beckham said dismissively. "I need this, Thomas, 1 week of peace and quiet." Thomas nodded reluctantly. "Yes, sir. We'll set course for the South Pacific." As the coastline disappeared, Beckham felt the knot in his chest loosen slightly. Out here, he was still in control. The sea didn't care about boardroom politics or betrayal. For the first 2 days, everything was perfect. Beckham spent his time fishing, reading, and drinking expensive scotch on the deck. But on the third night, Thomas's worried face appeared at his cabin door. "Sir, that storm has changed direction. It's moving faster than predicted, heading straight for us." Beckham frowned. "How bad?" "Bad, sir. I think we should head back to the nearest port immediately." "No," Beckham said firmly. "We can outrun it or go around it. I'm not going back yet." Thomas tried to argue, but Beckham wouldn't listen. It was a decision he would soon regret. The storm hit just after midnight, far worse than the weather reports had predicted. Massive. Waves crashed over the deck. Wind howled like a living thing. Beckham and Thomas fought to keep control of the yacht, but they were losing. "The engine's failing," Thomas shouted over the roar of the storm. "We need to radio for help." But the radio was dead. The satellite phone, too. They were alone in the darkness, at the mercy of the sea. A massive wave hit the side of the yacht, sending Beckham crashing into the wall. His head struck something hard and everything went black. When he opened his eyes, the first thing Beckham felt was pain. In his head, his ribs, his leg. The second thing was sand beneath his fingers. Somehow, he'd washed ashore. The yacht was gone. Thomas was gone. Everything was gone. Beckham tried to stand, but his leg buckled under him. He was hurt, but nothing seemed broken. His clothes were torn, his expensive watch still miraculously attached to his wrist. The sun beat down mercilessly as he crawled toward the edge of a jungle that bordered the beach. "Help!" he called out, his voice hoarse. "Is anybody there?" Only the sound of birds answered him. Beckham's vision began to blur again. As consciousness slipped away, he thought he saw a figure moving toward him from the trees, a woman with long, dark hair. "You're not dead," a calm voice said as his eyes closed. "That's a start." When Beckham woke again, he was lying on a bamboo mat inside what looked like a small hut. Sunlight filtered through the thatched roof, and a cool breeze came through the open doorway. His wounds had been cleaned and wrapped with some kind of leaves. "Where am I?" he croaked, his throat dry. A woman appeared in the doorway carrying a wooden bowl. She was about 39, with long dark hair pulled back from a face that had known both smiles and sorrows. She wasn't conventionally beautiful like the women he usually dated, but there was something striking about her. A quiet confidence, a dignity that caught him off guard. "You're on Lahoa Island," she said, kneeling beside him and offering him the bowl. It was filled with water. "Drink slowly." Beckham gulped down the water gratefully. "Thank you. I need to use your phone. My yacht wrecked in the storm and I need to contact my office." The woman looked at him curiously. "There are no phones here." "What do you mean, no cell service? That's fine. I just need a landline or a radio or something." "We have a radio in the village for emergencies, but the storm damaged it. The supply boat won't come for another 3 weeks." Beckham stared at her in disbelief. 3 weeks? That's not acceptable. "I'm Beckham Lane. People will be looking." "For me, I need to get back to New York immediately." The woman stood up. "I'm Lena Hale. And right now, Mr. Lane, you need to rest and heal. New York will have to wait." "You don't understand. I run a major corporation." He tried to sit up, but winced in pain. "Not anymore you don't," Lena said calmly. "Right now you're just a man with a bad cut on his leg and probably a concussion. I'll bring you some food soon." She turned to leave, but Beckham called after her. "Wait, you saved me?" Lena paused. "I found you on the beach and brought you here. My father was a healer. He taught me about the plants that can help with pain and prevent infection." "Well, I'm very grateful," Beckham said, turning on the charm that had helped him close countless business deals. "And I promise, when I get back to New York, you'll be generously rewarded. Maybe a new clinic for your village. Or I could set up a trust fund for—" "We don't need your money," Lena interrupted. "But we could use your help with the fishing nets tomorrow if you're feeling better." She left before he could respond, leaving Beckham staring after her in confusion. People didn't usually walk away when he offered money, and they certainly didn't ask him to help with fishing nets. The next few days were a lesson in humility for Beckham. His leg was too injured for him to walk far, but Lena insisted he help with small tasks, sorting shells, preparing food, mending clothes. When he complained or tried to flirt his way out of work, she simply ignored him. "You know, in New York, I have people who do these things for me," he said one evening as they sat outside her hut, eating fish she had caught and cooked. "And how's that working out for you?" Lena asked, not looking up from her meal. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you washed up on my beach half dead because you were too stubborn to listen to weather warnings. It means you wear a watch, worth more than everything in my village combined, but you can't start a fire or find clean water on your own." She finally looked at him. "It means money might buy service, but it doesn't teach survival." Beckham wanted to argue, but he couldn't. She was right. Without Lena, he would have died on that beach. "Where did you learn all this?" he asked instead, gesturing around at the simple but efficient way she lived. "You speak perfect English. You're obviously educated." Lena was quiet for a moment. "I was born here, but I left for a while, went to college in Australia, worked in Sydney for a few years." "And you came back to this?" Beckham couldn't hide his disbelief. "I came back to this," she confirmed, looking out at the ocean. "The world out there is too loud, too unkind. Here life is simple but real." Over the next week, as his injuries healed, Beckham began to see the island through different eyes. There was a rhythm to life here. Wake with the sun, work with your hands, rest when the day's needs were met. No phones ringing, no emails demanding attention, no betrayals waiting around every corner. And there was Lena. Unlike anyone he'd ever met, she didn't need or want his wealth or status. She saw through his charm to the man beneath, sometimes with amusement, sometimes with frustration, but always with honesty. 2 weeks after the shipwreck, they sat on the beach watching the sunset. Beckham's leg was much better, and he'd spent the day helping Lena repair the roof of her hut. "Tell me about New York," she said suddenly. "What's waiting for you there?" Beckham was surprised by the question. "Well, my company, for one thing, or what's left of it." He found himself telling her everything, how he'd built Lane Enterprises from nothing, the betrayal by Victor and Marcus, even his broken engagement to Vanessa, who had apparently been seeing Victor behind his back. "So that's why you were running away on your yacht," Lena said when he finished. It wasn't a question. "I wasn't running away," Beckham protested. "I was taking a break." Lena smiled slightly. "If you say so." "What about you?" he asked, changing the subject. "You never told me why you left Sydney to come back here." Lena was quiet so long that Beckham thought she wouldn't answer. Then she said, "I was engaged too, to a professor at the university where I worked. I thought we wanted the same things, but—" She trailed off. "But," Beckham prompted gently, "but he wanted me to be someone I'm not. He liked the idea of being with an exotic island girl, but he wanted me to fit neatly into his world. When I talked about bringing him here, showing him where I came from, he laughed like it was a joke." Beckham nodded, understanding more than he expected to. "So you left him?" "I left everything," Lena said. "Came back to the place where I know who I am." As they sat in companionable silence watching the stars come out, Beckham realized something strange. For the first time in years, maybe ever, he felt at peace. No deals to close, no appearances to maintain, just the sound of the waves and the woman beside him, who expected nothing but honesty. He looked at Lena's profile in the fading light and felt something shift inside him, something he wasn't ready to name yet, but it felt dangerously like hope. Little did he know that their time together was about to be cut short, because at that very moment, a ship was passing near the island, a ship with a captain who had just spotted the smoke from their cooking fire rising above the trees. 3 weeks had passed since the shipwreck, and Beckham barely recognized himself anymore. His designer clothes had been replaced by simple shorts and a faded t-shirt that Lena had found in the village. His once manicured nails were rough from work, and his skin had tanned under the island sun. His expensive watch no longer seemed important, though he still wore it, a last connection to his old life. "You're holding the net wrong," Lena said, watching him from the shore. They were standing knee-deep in the clear water, trying to catch fish for dinner. "I'm holding it exactly." "How you showed me," Beckham protested. Lena waded over to him, her hands confident as she adjusted his grip. "Like this. You need to feel the water, not fight against it." Beckham found himself distracted by her closeness, by the way the sunlight caught in her dark hair. These moments had been happening more frequently, times when their eyes met a second, too long when their hands brushed while working, and something electric passed between them. "I think I've got it now," he said softly. She looked up at him, her expression curious. "You're different than when you first arrived." "Is that a good thing?" "It's just a thing I've noticed," she said with a small smile, stepping back. As they worked, Beckham thought about the changes in himself. He'd learned to start a fire, to identify edible plants, to predict the weather by watching the clouds. More importantly, he'd learned to listen, to the island, to Lena, to his own thoughts. That evening, as they sat outside her hut eating the fish they'd caught, Beckham asked the question that had been on his mind. "Don't you ever get lonely here?" Lena considered this. "Sometimes, but I'm not alone. There are 6 families in our village. We take care of each other." "But don't you? Miss, I don't know, restaurants, movies, shopping?" She laughed. "So you still don't understand, do you? Those things are nice, but they're not important." "Then what is important?" he asked. "Having enough, being honest with yourself and others, finding peace." She looked at him. "What about you? What's important to you, Beckham Lane?" The question caught him off guard. A month ago, he would have answered without hesitation. Success, power, proving himself. But now? "I don't know anymore," he admitted. "Everything I thought mattered. It all feels empty now." "That's a good place to start," Lena said quietly. The next day, They walked to the other side of the island to collect a special kind of seaweed that Lena used for medicine. As they climbed over rocks and through shallow pools, Beckham found himself telling her about his childhood. Growing up with wealthy but distant parents, the pressure to achieve, his determination to build something that would make them proud. They never came to a single board meeting, he said. Even when I took the company public, my mother sent flowers. Is that why you work so hard? To earn their approval? Beckham stopped walking, struck by the simplicity of her insight. I never thought of it that way. Sometimes we need distance to see things clearly, Lena said. When they reached a secluded cove, Lena waded into the water to collect the seaweed. Beckham watched her, struck by her grace and strength. She belonged here in a way he'd never belonged anywhere. Tell me more about your fiancé, he said when she returned. The professor, Lena's face closed slightly. His name was David. He studied indigenous cultures. When we met, I was working at the university library. He was charming, intelligent. He made me feel special. What went wrong? Beckham asked gently. She sighed. Everything he loved about me at first became a problem later. My connection to this place, my beliefs, the way I saw the world. He wanted to change me, to help me reach my potential, which meant becoming more like him. His loss, Beckham said simply. Lena looked at him with surprise, then smiled. What about your fiancée? Vanessa? Beckham grimaced. Vanessa was beautiful, sophisticated. We made sense on paper, same social circles, same ambitions. But now, I wonder if she ever really knew me, or if I knew her. And did you know her? Beckham thought about it. No, he admitted. I knew the image she projected, just like she knew my image. Maybe that's all we were to each other. They were quiet on the walk back, each lost in thought. As they neared Lena's hut, something caught Beckham's eye, a stone smooth and warm-looking in the afternoon sun. He picked it up, feeling its weight in his palm. What's that? Lena asked. Just a stone, he said, slipping it into his pocket. I like the feel of it. That night, a storm rolled in. Not as severe as the one that had wrecked his yacht, but enough to keep them inside. Thunder rumbled overhead as rain pounded on the thatched roof. Will it hold? Beckham asked, looking up at the ceiling they'd repaired together. It should, Lena said. We did good work. She lit a small oil lamp, casting the hut in a warm glow. The space felt intimate, their shoulders almost touching as they sat on mats on the floor. Outside, the world roared and crashed, but inside was calm. Are you worried? Lena asked. About getting back to your life? Beckham considered the question. A month ago, being stranded would have seemed like his worst nightmare. Now he wasn't sure he wanted to be rescued. I should be, he said honestly. My company's in trouble. My reputation's probably in tatters. I have lawsuits to file, people to confront. But sitting here with you? He paused, surprised by his own feelings. I've never felt more at peace. Lena looked at him, her eyes searching his face. Don't confuse gratitude with something else, Beckham. I saved your life, but that doesn't mean... This isn't gratitude, he interrupted. This is... I don't know what this is, but it's real. The air between them seemed to thicken. Beckham reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he touched her cheek gently. I see you, Lena, he whispered. The real you, and you're the most amazing woman I've ever known. For a moment she seemed to waver. Then she stood up abruptly, moving away from him. You don't belong here, she said, her voice tight. This isn't your world. When a ship comes, and one will come eventually, you'll go back to New York and expensive watches and women who look like fashion models. And this will all just be a story you tell at cocktail parties. That's not fair, Beckham said, standing too. You don't know what I'm feeling. I know men like you don't change that easily, she replied. I've heard enough of your stories, the deals, the yachts, the women. That's who you are. That's who I was, he insisted. Can't you see that I'm different now? Lena shook her head. It's been a month, Beckham. People don't change in a month. I did, he said quietly. Because of you. Their eyes locked in the dim light. For a moment, Beckham thought she might believe him. Then there was a shout from outside, someone calling Lena's name. She grabbed a rain poncho and hurried to the door. An older man stood there soaking wet. "Tama, what's wrong?" she asked, switching to the local language. "A ship," the man said in English, glancing at Beckham. "Just outside the reef. They've sent a signal. They saw our fires." Beckham felt his heart drop. A ship. Rescue. It was what he'd been hoping for when he first arrived. Now it felt like a threat. Lena turned to look at him, her expression unreadable. "You're going home, Beckham." The next morning, the storm had passed, leaving the world fresh and clean. A large yacht was anchored beyond the reef, and a smaller boat was making its way to shore. Beckham stood on the beach, watching it approach. His few belongings were packed in a simple bag that Lena had given him. Lena stood a few steps away, her face composed but her eyes troubled. "You don't have to go," she said suddenly. "You could stay." Beckham looked at her in surprise. "You want me to stay?" "I'm just saying you have a choice," she said, not quite meeting his eyes. "We all do." Before he could respond, the boat reached the shore. Two men jumped out, both in uniform. "Mr. Lane?" one called. "Beckham Lane?" Beckham raised his hand. "That's me." The men hurried over, looks of relief on their faces. "Sir, we've been searching for weeks. There was debris from your yacht found near Fiji, but no bodies. When we saw the smoke from this island, we thought there might be a chance." "How did you know to look for me?" Beckham asked. "Your company sent us, sir. Your brother-in-law, Mr. Victor Reeves, organized the search party." Beckham's jaw tightened. "Did he now?" "Yes, sir. He and your fiancée, Miss Rothschild, have been very concerned." "Ex-fiancée," Beckham corrected automatically. Then he frowned. "Wait, Vanessa has been involved in the search?" "Yes, sir. She's been on TV offering a reward for information. It's been all over the news." Beckham exchanged a look with Lena, who raised an eyebrow. "The captain would like to speak with you, sir," the crewman continued. "And we have a satellite phone, if you'd like to call your family." "Thank you," Beckham said. "I'll be there in a moment." When they stepped away, he turned to Lena. "This doesn't make sense. Victor and Vanessa were part of the takeover. Why would they be leading the search?" "Maybe they feel guilty," Lena suggested. "Or maybe they need me for something," Beckham said darkly. The takeover might not have gone as smoothly as they planned. He looked at the yacht, then back at Lena. The choice suddenly seemed impossible. "Come with me," he said impulsively. "Just to New York. See my world like I've seen yours." Lena shook her head. "I told you I tried that life. It's not for me." "But we—" "There is no we, Beckham," she interrupted, though her voice was gentle. "There's just a man who got lost and a woman who helped him find his way. Now it's time for you to go home." One of the crewmen called from the boat. "Mr. Lane?" "We should go, sir. The tide is changing." Beckham felt torn in two. His old life was calling, a life of power and privilege that had once defined him. But here was Lena, the woman who had saved more than just his physical body. She had somehow saved something deeper. "This isn't goodbye," he said firmly. "I'm coming back." Lena's smile was sad. "Don't make promises you can't keep." "I will keep it," he insisted. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the stone he'd found. "Here, hold this for me. I'll come back for it." She took the stone, her fingers brushing his. "Goodbye, Beckham." He wanted to say more, to convince her that he meant every word. But the crewmen were waiting, and the moment was slipping away. With one last look at Lena standing on the shore, Beckham turned and walked toward the boat, toward his old life and all its complications. But as the island grew smaller in the distance, he knew with absolute certainty that he would return. What he didn't know was what awaited him in New York, or that Lena, watching the yacht disappear over the horizon, was already beginning to regret letting him go. The New York skyline appeared through the airplane window, glittering in the afternoon. Sat. Beckham, freshly showered and wearing clothes provided by the yacht crew, felt like a stranger in his own skin. The crisp button-down shirt and slacks were familiar but somehow wrong, as if they belonged to someone else. "We'll be landing." "In 10 minutes, Mr. Lane," the flight attendant said, smiling brightly. "Your car is waiting at the private terminal." Beckham nodded, his thoughts still on the island, on Lena. The past 3 days had been a whirlwind of medical checks, official statements, and calls to his lawyer. He'd been shocked to learn that he'd been presumed dead after 2 weeks with no sign of him. Even more shocking was the story Victor and Vanessa had been telling the world. According to the news, They had been devastated by his disappearance. The company had suffered in his absence. The board was eager for his return. It was all very touching and completely false. The plane touched down smoothly, and as Beckham stepped onto the tarmac, he saw a familiar face waiting. James Moretti, his lawyer and oldest friend, stood next to a black SUV, a look of relief on his face. "You look pretty good for a dead man," James said, embracing him. "Thanks for coming," Beckham replied. "I wasn't sure who I could trust." They slid into the back of the SUV, and as it pulled away from the airport, James handed Beckham a folder. "Everything you need to know is in here. The short version: Victor and Marcus Wells tried to take over your company, but they hit a snag. The merger required your death certificate or your signature. So that's why they were so eager to find me," Beckham said grimly. "They need me to sign off on my own destruction." "That's not all," James continued. "Vanessa has been playing the grieving almost widow to perfection. Public sympathy is through the roof. She's convinced half the board that she should have a say in the company's future, out of respect for your memory." Beckham laughed without humor. "And now that I'm back from the dead? Now they'll try to charm you, pressure you, or threaten you into signing their papers," James said. "The question is, what do you want to do?" Beckham looked out the window at the city rushing by. The tall buildings, the crowded streets, the constant noise. It all felt overwhelming after the quiet of the island. "I want to take back what's mine," he said firmly, "and then I want to change everything." The car stopped in front of his penthouse building. As Beckham stepped out, the doorman did a double take. "Mr. Lane, we thought you were, welcome." "Home, sir." Inside his apartment, everything was exactly as he'd left it, sleek, expensive, and utterly impersonal. No photos on the walls, no mementos, just costly art chosen by a decorator. Beckham ran his hand over the marble counter in the kitchen, thinking of Lena's simple wooden table, worn smooth by years of use. "Strange being back?" James asked. "You have no idea," Beckham replied. "I need to get some rest. Big day tomorrow." After James left, Beckham stood alone in the silent apartment. He took the smooth stone from his pocket. He hadn't given it to Lena after all, couldn't bear to part with this small connection to the island, to her. He placed it on his nightstand, a splash of natural color against the sterile gray and white of his bedroom. As he lay down on his too-soft bed, he whispered into the darkness, "I will come back to you, Lena. I promise." The next morning, Beckham walked into the offices of Lane Enterprises dressed in his sharpest suit, his hair perfectly styled, his expression confident. The receptionist gasped when she saw him, dropping her coffee mug with a crash. "Mr. Lane, we had no idea you were alive." "Back in town," he smiled thinly, surprise. As he strode through the office, people stopped what they were doing to stare. Some looked guilty, others relieved. He ignored them all, heading straight for the boardroom, where he knew the executive team would be having their morning meeting. He pushed open the door without knocking. Victor was standing at the head of the table, Beckham's spot, in mid-sentence. His face went white when he saw Beckham. "Beckham, you're back." "Miss me?" Beckham asked coolly, scanning the faces around the table. Marcus Wells was there, along with the board members who had voted against him. And Vanessa, looking stunning as always in a designer dress, her surprise quickly masked behind a practiced smile. "Darling," she exclaimed, rising from her seat. "We've been so worried." She moved to embrace him, but Beckham stepped back. "Save it, Vanessa, I know everything." Victor cleared his throat. "Beckham, I understand you must be confused after your ordeal." "I'm not confused at all," Beckham interrupted. "In fact, being stranded on that island gave me remarkable clarity." He placed his hands on the table, leaning forward. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm calling an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Until then, no decisions, no signatures, no press releases." "How you can't just walk back in here and start giving orders," Marcus said. "Things have changed while you were gone." "Have they?" Beckham asked mildly. "Because according to my lawyer, without my signature or my death certificate, your entire takeover is in limbo," he smiled. "And I'm very much alive." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Victor, Get your things out of my office by noon." As he walked away, he heard Vanessa's heels clicking rapidly behind him. "Beckham, wait." He stopped but didn't turn around. "You have to understand," she said, coming around to face him. "Victor told me you were selling the company anyway. He said you were planning to leave everyone behind, including me." "And you believed him?" Beckham asked, studying her beautiful face. He used to think he loved her. Now he just felt sorry for her. "I didn't know what to believe," she said, touching his arm. "But now you're back and we can start fresh. The wedding plans are still in place. We can—" "There won't be a wedding, Vanessa," Beckham said gently, removing her hand. "There probably never should have been." Her expression hardened. "Is there someone else? Some island girl who nursed you back to health?" The image of Lena flashed in his mind, not just her face, but her strength, her honesty, her quiet wisdom. "This isn't about anyone else. It's about us. We never really knew each other, did we?" Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "You've changed." "Yes," he agreed. "I have." The next day, the boardroom was packed. News of Beckham's return had spread like wildfire, and everyone wanted to see what would happen next. James sat at Beckham's right, a stack of documents in front of him. "Before we begin," Beckham said, "I want to thank everyone who actually tried to find me after my yacht went down." He looked pointedly at Victor. "Your concern is touching." He then laid out what he knew about the attempted takeover, the secret, meetings, the lies, the manipulation of the board. "So what now?" Marcus asked defensively. "You're back. You've exposed our evil plan. Are you going to fire everyone who opposed you?" "That would be the old Beckham," he replied. "The man who thought control was the same as power, who confused money with success." He took a deep breath. "Instead, I'm restructuring the entire company." For the next hour, Beckham outlined his new vision. Fewer luxury products, more sustainable goods, a foundation to support remote communities, a complete overhaul of their manufacturing processes to reduce environmental impact. "This is business suicide," Victor protested. "Our shareholders will revolt." "Actually," James interjected, "preliminary market research suggests these changes could position us ahead of the curve. Consumers are demanding more ethical products. They're willing to pay premium prices for companies they can believe in." By the end of the meeting, half the board was cautiously supportive, while the others, led by Victor and Marcus, were openly hostile. But with Beckham's legal position secure, there was little they could do but watch as he began to dismantle the company they had tried to steal and rebuild it into something new. Over the next few weeks, Beckham threw himself into the transformation. He hired new people, fired others, and worked longer hours than ever before. But it wasn't the same driven, empty work of his past. This time, he had a purpose. Every night, he held the smooth stone from the island, thinking of Lena. Sometimes, he even talked to it, telling her about his day, his plans, his hopes. He knew it was foolish, but it made her feel closer somehow. One evening, as he was working late in his office, Eleanor, his new assistant, appeared at his door. "Mr. Lane, there's someone here to see you." "I don't have any appointments," Beckham said, not looking up from his computer. "She says she's an old friend, a Ms. Hale." Beckham's head snapped up. Lena's here." He was on his feet and out the door before Elena could answer. And there, standing in his reception area, was Lena. She wore modern clothes, jeans and a simple blouse, but she looked out of place amid the sleek corporate backdrop, like a tropical flower in a concrete garden. "Lena," he breathed, stopping a few feet away, afraid that if he moved closer, she might disappear. "Hello, Beckham," she said, her voice just as he remembered it, calm, slightly amused, with that hint of an accent. "What are you doing here? How? I'm so happy to see you, but—" "Your stone," she said, opening her hand to reveal a smooth stone identical to the one on his nightstand. "You said you'd come back for it, but when weeks passed and you didn't." She shrugged. "I decided to bring it to you instead." Beckham couldn't help himself anymore. He crossed the space between them and pulled her into his arms. For a moment she stiffened, then relaxed against him. "I was coming back," he whispered into her hair. "I just had things to fix here first." "I know," she said, stepping back to look at him. "I saw the news. Your new foundation, the changes to your company. Very impressive." Beckham's heart swelled. At her words, "I did it for you. Well, because of you. You did it for yourself," she corrected him. "The man you wanted to become. Will you stay?" he asked suddenly. "Just for a while. Let me show you my world, like you showed me yours." Lena hesitated. "New York is very different from my island." "I know," he said, taking her hand. "But I'll be your guide, just like you were mine." She smiled then, a real smile that lit up her eyes. "I'd like that." For the next week, Beckham showed Lena his city. They walked through Central Park, ate at his favorite restaurants, and visited museums. He took her to his penthouse, watching with amusement as she explored the space with the same curious intelligence she'd shown on the island. "So many things," she observed, looking at his collection of art and antiques. "Do they make you happy?" "They used to make me feel successful," he admitted. "But happy? No. I'm beginning to think happiness isn't something you can buy." Lena nodded, touching a glass sculpture. "What will you do with all this?" "Sell most of it," he decided. "Donate the money to the foundation." On their last night together, they stood on his balcony, looking out at the city lights. Beckham had never felt so torn. He'd arranged for Lena to fly home the next day, first class all the way, with stops to visit friends she'd made during her college years. "Will you come back?" he asked, echoing the question she'd asked him on the beach. "To New York, I mean, to me." Lena looked at him thoughtfully. "I don't belong here, Beckham." "You belong with me," he said softly. "And I belong with you." "I've known that since the island. But your life is here now, your company, your new purpose. A company can be run from anywhere," Beckham said, taking her hands in his. "Technology is amazing that way." He smiled ruefully. "Though I suppose decent internet would be required." "What are you saying?" Lena asked, her eyes searching his. "I'm saying I love you," Beckham replied simply, "and I want to be wherever you are, whether that's here or on your island or somewhere in between." Lena's eyes widened. "Beckham, you can't just abandon everything you've built." "I'm not abandoning anything," he interrupted. "I'm choosing what matters most." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the stone he'd kept all these weeks. "I found this the day you saved me. I've kept it with me every day since." He placed it in her palm, next to its twin. "Two halves of the same whole," he said softly. "Like us." Lena looked down at the stones, then up at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I thought I was immune to men like you, charming, wealthy, used to getting their way." "I'm not that man anymore," he said. "You know that better than anyone." She nodded slowly. "Yes, I do." She closed her hand around the stones. "I need time, Beckham, to be sure. To think." "Take all the time you need," he said, though his heart ached at the thought of her leaving. "I'll wait." The next morning he drove her to the airport himself. As they said goodbye at the security gate, he handed her an envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "Plane tickets," he said. "Open-ended, first class, for when you decide." "If you decide." She tucked the envelope into her bag, then surprised him by rising on her tiptoes to kiss him softly. "Goodbye, Beckham." "Not goodbye," he corrected her, touching her cheek. "Just see you later." As he watched her walk away, disappearing into the crowd, Beckham felt a strange mixture of loss and hope. He had changed in ways he never could have imagined that day his yacht wrecked on her shore. And whatever happened next, he knew he would never go back to being the man he was before. Back at his office, he threw himself into his work with renewed purpose. The Foundation's first project would be bringing sustainable technology and better medical facilities to remote islands in the South Pacific. He hired people who understood the delicate balance between progress and preservation. Every decision he made, he found himself thinking, what would Lena say about this? Weeks passed with no word from her. Beckham tried to be patient, to give her the time she'd asked for. But as 1 month became 2, he began to wonder if she'd made her decision, and it wasn't him. Then, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, Eleanor appeared at his door again. "Mr. Lane, there's a package for you, from the South Pacific." Beckham's heart raced as she handed him a small box wrapped in simple brown paper. His hands shook slightly as he opened it. Inside was a letter and a small wooden carving of a boat. He unfolded the letter, recognizing Lena's neat handwriting. "Dear Beckham, I've been thinking about what you said about belonging. The truth is, I've never fully belonged anywhere, not on the island, not in Sydney, not in your New York. Maybe that's why I understood you so well when you washed up on my shore, another soul caught between worlds. The carved boat is from my father. He says it represents journey, not destination, that sometimes we must sail away from what we know to find where we truly belong. I've been asking myself what I want, what would make me happy, and the answer keeps coming back to you. Not your money or your power or your city. Just you, the man I came to know on the island and the man I watched you become in New York. So this isn't a goodbye letter. It's an invitation. My cousin is getting married next month. It's a traditional ceremony, very beautiful. I would like you to be my guest. And after that, well, after that, we can decide together where we belong. The return ticket you gave me. Fares enclosed, I've filled in the date. Will you come? Yours, Lena." Beckham read the letter twice, his heart full to bursting. Then he called Elena into his office. "Cancel all my meetings for the next month," he said, unable to keep the smile from his face. "And book me on the first flight to Fiji next week." "Yes, sir," she said, looking confused but pleased by his obvious happiness. "May I ask why?" Beckham picked up the wooden boat, running his fingers over its smooth curves. "I'm going to a wedding," he said, "and maybe finding out where I belong." As Elena left to make the arrangements, Beckham looked out his window at the Manhattan skyline. For the first time, he didn't see it as a symbol of his success or his power. It was just a place, a beautiful place, but just a place. His home, his heart, was wherever Lena was. He took out his phone and sent her a text. "I'm coming. Save me a dance." Somewhere across the ocean, Lena received his message and smiled. She held the two stones in her hand, two parts of the same whole. She had no idea what the future would bring, but for the first time in her life, she was ready to find out. With Beckham, the island looked different somehow as Beckham's plane circled for landing. The bright blue water, the lush green jungle, the white sandy beaches, all exactly as he remembered, yet transformed by his new perspective. This wasn't just a remote spot where he'd been stranded. It was Lena's home, a place that had changed him forever. As he stepped off the small plane onto the airstrip that had been built on the larger neighboring island, the warm, tropical air enveloped him like an old friend. He'd traded his business, suit for lightweight pants and a simple linen shirt, clothes more suited to island life, but still noticeably expensive. Old habits died hard. "Mr. Lane," a young man approached him, smiling. "I'm Tama's son, Koa. Lena sent me to bring you to our island." "Thank you," Beckham said, shaking his hand. "How is she?" "Very busy with wedding preparations," Koa replied, with a grin. "My cousin Malia is the bride and the whole village is helping." They made their way to a small boat, and as they sped across the water toward Lena's island, Beckham felt his heart race. 3 months had passed since she'd left. New York. 3 months of texts and occasional phone calls when the island's spotty connection allowed. 3 months of wondering if they could build something real together. When they rounded the point and the village came into view, Beckham spotted her immediately, standing on the beach, shading her eyes as she watched for him. He could barely wait for the boat to stop before jumping out, his expensive shoes sinking into the wet sand as he made his way to her. "Welcome back," Lena said, her eyes bright with emotion. Beckham wanted to sweep her into his arms, but something in her posture made him hesitate. They weren't alone. Several villagers were watching with curious eyes. He settled for taking her hands in his. "I've missed you," he said simply. Her smile told him everything he needed to know. "Come. There's someone who wants to meet you." She led him to the village where an elderly man sat outside a hut larger than the others. His face was weathered by sun and time, but his eyes were sharp and knowing. "Beckham, this is my father, Akoni," Lena said. "He's our village elder." Beckham extended his hand, but Akoni merely looked at him appraisingly. "So you are the man who was lost and found," he said in perfect English. "The man my daughter cannot stop speaking of." Beckham smiled. "I hope she said good things." She said true. Things, Oconee replied. Which is better than good? He gestured for Beckham to sit. You have traveled far. Rest now. Tonight we feast for the coming wedding. As the day progressed, Beckham reacquainted himself with the village. Some things had changed. A new fishing boat, repairs to several huts, but the rhythm of life remained the same. Children played on the beach, women wove mats and baskets, men returned from fishing trips with their catches. Lena showed him to a small hut near hers. You'll stay here, she said. It belongs to Koa's family, but they're staying with relatives until after the wedding. Beckham set down his bag, looking around at the simple space. It's perfect, he said honestly. There was an awkward moment of silence between them, 1,000 unspoken words hanging in the air. I should let you get settled, Lena said, turning to leave. The celebration starts at sunset. Lena, Beckham caught her hand. I didn't come for the wedding. I came for you. She looked down at their joined hands. I know, but we've been apart for months. We've both had time to think, to wonder if what we felt was real or just circumstances. I've never been more certain of anything, Beckham said firmly. Then we have time, she replied, squeezing his hand before letting go. Let's not rush. That evening, the entire village gathered on the beach. A bonfire blazed, sending sparks spiraling into the night sky. Food was abundant. Fresh fish, tropical fruits, dishes Beckham had never seen before. Music filled the air, played on instruments made from wood, shells, and stretched animal skins. Beckham sat between Lena and her father, watching as the bride and groom were celebrated with songs and dances. Malia was radiant in a dress adorned with shells and flowers, her future husband beaming with pride beside her. In our tradition, Oconee explained to Beckham, marriage is not just between two people. It is between families, between the couple and the land, between the past and the future. Beckham nodded, understanding now why this ceremony was so important to Lena. It's beautiful, he said. As the celebration continued, Lena was called to dance with the other women. Beckham watched, mesmerized, as she moved gracefully to the rhythm of the drums. This was a side of her he hadn't seen before, connected to her heritage, part of something larger than herself. She belongs to two worlds, Oconee said, following Beckham's gaze. Like you do now. Beckham looked at the old man in surprise. What do you mean? You were one man before the storm brought you here. You are another man now. Part of you will always belong to this place, to us. Oconee's eyes were kind but penetrating. The question is, can you belong to both worlds or must you choose? Before Beckham could answer, the music changed and Lena appeared before him, hand extended. You promised me a dance, she said, smiling. He took her hand and let her lead him into the circle of dancers. I'm not very good at this, he warned her. Just follow me, she said, like I followed you in New York. As they moved together under the stars, Beckham felt something shift between them. A recognition, a remembering of what they'd found in each other. When the dance ended, he kept hold of her hand. Walk with me? He asked. They slipped away from the celebration, following the shoreline to a quiet spot where the sound of the waves drowned out the distant music. The moon cast a silver path across the water, lighting their way. Your father asked if I could belong to both worlds, Beckham said. Yours and mine, Lena nodded. It's what I've been asking myself since I left New York. And, she looked out at the ocean, I think maybe we don't have to choose. Maybe we can create something new together. Beckham felt hope rise in his chest. What would that look like? I don't know exactly, she admitted, but I do know that I love you, Beckham. The man you are now, not who you were or who you might become. The words he'd been waiting to hear. I love you too. I think I have since you found me on that beach and said, you're not dead. That's a start. She laughed, the sound carrying on the night air. You were such a difficult patient. I was a difficult person, he corrected her. You helped me see that. They sat on the sand, shoulders touching, comfortable in the silence between them. After a while, Beckham reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden box. I brought something for you, he said, placing it in her hand. Lena opened it carefully. Inside was a simple silver ring with a small pearl. Nothing flashy or ostentatious, but elegant in its simplicity. "It's not what you think," Beckham said quickly, seeing her expression. "It's not an engagement ring, or it doesn't have to be, not yet. It's a promise. That wherever life takes us, we face it together." Lena touched the pearl gently. "It's beautiful. The pearl reminded me of you," he explained. "Something natural and perfect, formed through time and patience." She looked at him, her eyes soft, in the moonlight. "When did you become so poetic?" "I had a good teacher," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Someone who showed me how to see the world differently." Lena closed the box carefully and handed it back to him. Beckham's heart sank, thinking she was refusing it until she said, "Hold on to this for now, we still have things to figure out." "Like what?" he asked. "Like where we'll live, how we'll balance your work with my life here, what we both want for the future." She took his hand. "I don't want to lose myself again, Beckham, not even for you." "I would never ask you to," he said firmly. "That's not love." She smiled at his certainty. "See, you have changed." They walked back to the celebration hand in hand, rejoining the villagers as they danced under the stars. Tomorrow they would talk about the future, about possibilities and plans. But tonight was for celebrating new beginnings, Malia and her husband's and perhaps their own. The wedding ceremony took place the next morning as the sun rose over the ocean. The entire village gathered on the beach, forming a circle around the couple as they exchanged vows in both the local language and English. Beckham stood beside Lena, moved by the simplicity and depth of the ritual. After the ceremony, as people began to disperse, Oconee approached them. "Lena tells me you have built a foundation to help islands like ours," he said to Beckham. "Yes," Beckham replied. "We want to bring sustainable technology, better communication systems, medical supplies, whatever communities need, while respecting their traditions." Oconee nodded thoughtfully. "Our island could use better medical facilities. When storms come, it is difficult to reach the hospital on the main island. I'd be honored to help," Beckham said sincerely. "Perhaps," Oconee suggested, "you could build a small house here for your visits." Beckham glanced at Lena, who looked as surprised as he felt by her father's words. "I would like that very much," he said carefully. Oconee clapped him on the shoulder. "Good. It is decided then." With that, he walked away, leaving them staring after him. "Did your father just give us his blessing?" Beckham asked, amazed. Lena laughed. "In his way, yes." Over the next week, they fell into a rhythm together. During the days, Beckham explored the island with Lena, learning more about her people and their ways. He used his satellite phone to check in with his office occasionally, but found himself caring less and less about the daily dramas of corporate life. In the evenings, they sat with Oconee and others, planning for the medical facility. Beckham was impressed by the islanders' knowledge and practical wisdom. They didn't want to change their way of life, just make it safer and more secure. On their last night before Beckham was scheduled to return to New York, he and Lena sat on the beach, where they'd first talked honestly all those months ago. The stone from his shipwreck day sat between them on a blanket, a reminder of how far they'd come. "I've been thinking," Beckham said, "about what your father asked, about belonging to two worlds." Lena looked at him expectantly. "What if I moved the headquarters of my foundation here?" he continued. "Not to this island exactly, but to Fiji. We could have a house there and one here. I could run most of my business remotely, with occasional trips to New York." "You would do that?" Lena asked, surprised. "Leave New York?" "It hasn't felt like home since you left," he admitted. "And the more time I spend here, the more I realize what really matters." He took her hand. "You matter, Lena. What we have matters." She was quiet for a long moment, considering his words. "What about my work, my life here?" "You could continue your healing work," Beckham suggested. "Maybe expand it through the foundation, help more people. And we'd be close enough that you could still be part of the village, part of your father's life." Hope bloomed in her eyes. "You've really thought about this?" "I've thought of little else," he confessed. "I want to build a life with you, Lena. One where neither of us has to give up who we are or what matters to us. She moved closer to him on the blanket. "There's something I haven't told you. The university in Fiji offered me a position teaching traditional medicine. I turned it down because I couldn't leave my father, my village. But if we were based in Fiji, you could teach and still visit regularly," Beckham said, excitement building in his voice. "Yes," she agreed, a slow smile spreading across her face. "We could make it work, couldn't we?" "We already are," he said, pulling her into his arms. Under the vast starry sky, they allowed themselves to imagine their future. Not his, not hers, but theirs. A life balanced between worlds, between the modern and the traditional, between ambition and peace. Beckham reached for the wooden box he'd shown her earlier in the week. "I meant what I said before. This isn't pressure. It's a promise." He opened it, revealing the pearl ring. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." This time, Lena took the ring, slipping it onto her finger. "Together," she agreed, as they sealed their promise with a kiss. The ocean waves crashed gently on the shore, a constant reminder of the storm that had brought them together and the calm they had found in each other. 6 months later, a small house stood on a hillside overlooking the village, modern but built with local materials, designed to blend with the landscape rather than dominate it. Solar panels provided electricity, and a satellite dish ensured communication with the outside world. Nearby, a medical clinic was nearing completion, staffed by both local healers and visiting doctors. Beckham stood on the porch, watching as Lena walked up the path from the village, her face aglow with purpose and contentment. Their life had found its rhythm. 3 weeks on the island, 1 week in Fiji where Lena taught at the university and Beckham ran the foundation. His old life in New York seemed like a distant dream now. The company continued without him, with James and a new team of executives who shared Beckham's vision running day-to-day operations. He remained involved in major decisions, but found that giving up control had freed him in ways he never expected. "You're thinking deep thoughts," Lena observed as she reached him, leaning up to kiss him hello. "I was just thinking how lucky I am that my yacht sank," Beckham replied with a smile. She laughed, the sound still his favorite in the world. "Only you would consider a shipwreck good fortune." "It was," he insisted, pulling her close. "It brought me to you." Inside the house, their lives had merged in visible ways. His business books beside her medical texts, sophisticated technology alongside traditional crafts, photographs of New York skyscrapers next to images of island sunsets. On the mantel sat 2 smooth stones and a wooden boat carving, simple objects that told the story of their journey. From strangers to reluctant companions, to friends, to lovers, to partners. From a man lost at sea to a man who had finally found his way home. That evening, as the sun set over the ocean, Beckham and Lena sat on their porch with a coney, sharing a meal and stories. The old man had aged in the past months, moving more slowly, but his mind remained sharp. "I had a dream last night," Coney said suddenly. "I saw a child, a girl with your eyes, Beckham, and Lena's smile." He looked at them meaningfully. She was beautiful, strong. Lena and Beckham exchanged a look, a silent communication passing between them. They hadn't told anyone yet, not even her father. "That's interesting," Lena said carefully, "because in about 7 months we might find out if your dream was true." Coney's weathered face split into a wide grin. "The spirits have already shown me. She will be born as the rainy season ends, when the world is fresh and new." Beckham put his arm around Lena, his hand resting protectively over her still flat stomach. A child, their child, a new life born of 2 worlds. Later, as they lay in bed listening to the sound of the waves, Beckham marveled at how completely his life had changed. From the man who measured success in dollars and deals, to a man who counted his wealth in moments of connection, in the love of a woman who had seen his true self, in the anticipation of a child who would carry both their heritages. "Are you happy?" Lena asked softly, her head on his chest. "Completely," Beckham replied without hesitation. "Are you?" "Yes," she said simply. "This life we've built, it's better than anything I imagined." He kissed her gently. "And it's just beginning." Outside their window, the moon cast its silver light on the island that had brought them together. The place where Beckham Lane, lost and broken, had washed ashore. The place where Lena Hale had found him and said those first fateful words. "You're not dead." That's a start. Not just a start, Beckham thought as sleep claimed him. The beginning of everything that mattered. The end.